Hi, this is a quick video on the division of labour. The division of labour refers to how labour is organised within a factory by an entrepreneur. In businesses that operate a high division of labour, the production process is separated into a series of tasks or steps. Each worker performs one of the tasks needed to complete the finished product. The best known example of the division of labour is Adam Smith's description of an 18th century pin making factory. In his classic book The Wealth of Nations, which was published in 1776, the same year as US independence was declared, Smith explained that the 20 or so processes needed to produce a pin, like cutting the wire, sharpening the end of the pin, putting the head on top of the pin, etc. He kind of noticed that it was more efficient to do this using something called a high division of labour. Smith noticed that the productivity of labour in the factory was low when workers produced pins as a complete unit of work by undergoing all 20 processes needed to produce a pin in sequence. However, if each worker in the factory specialised and did only one of the tasks, for example sharpening pins, and they'd be doing that repetitively all day long, the output of the pin factory soared. In a pin factory operating with a high division of labour, the finished pins are gradually assembled as they move down or move along a production line. 2 centuries later, Henry Ford refined what Adam Smith described and introduced something called mass production, which was a more efficient way of producing things than just a basic division of labour. And Ford's trick was to connect specialised workers who were collectively assembling a product using a conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt saved time because it moved the work to the worker at a pace that was dictated to the worker by the management. So one more time then, so a division of labour, what we're really talking about here is that you can produce things in two different ways. The first way is what I would describe a complete unit of work. So if 20 different processes need to be undertaken to produce a pin, under a complete unit of work, each worker would produce pins from start to finish on their own, and they would do each of those 20 tasks in the right sequence. Smith thought that was inefficient. He saw a pin factory where they were operating a high division of labour, and rather than doing all 20 tasks in sequence, in this case the workers were they'd specialised at only doing one of those component tasks, and because they did it repetitively they got really good at it. So the output of the factory increased when workers didn't try to do all of the tasks, they just specialised at one of them. Okay, so this is quite a common area of questioning for the exam. So let's talk a bit about the advantages of the division of labour. So the first advantage is less training is required. So under a high division of labour, each worker only has to know how to perform one of the 20 or so different tasks. So this obviously reduces the amount of time and money that needs to be spent on staff training. So a high division of labour therefore reduces a firm's costs, which boosts profits. Number two, second advantage, high division of labour should speed up production. So workers are only asked to perform one task. By repeatedly performing their task in a high division of labour, each worker will gradually become more proficient at doing whatever task they've been assigned by the management. So a high division of labour therefore leads to a higher skill levels as workers learn by doing. If you just do the same thing over and over and over again, you get good at it. Those of you that are interested in sport, that's how you're good at doing an extra cover drive in cricket, or being a top footballer and hitting a 20-yard free kick into the top right bin. You just have to do it repetitively, one task over and over and over again. So in contrast, asking workers to perform a range of tasks, it's less efficient. This is because each worker will have to master a greater range of tasks, which obviously takes time. Less time wasted. Yeah, if you're operating a system where a worker has to do all 20 tasks, they might be moving from one part of the factory to the next, moving between tasks. In a high division of labour, workers stay at their workstation and perform the same task over and over again. In firms where each worker is assigned a range of tasks, as I say, time will be wasted because workers have got to move from one workstation to another. Number 4, high productivity. As you know, productivity is output per worker. So as previously stated, a high division of labour will speed up production. As a result, the same number of workers will now be able to produce more output in total. The higher levels of productivity created by the division of labour will make firms more efficient. The firm's output will rise without any corresponding increase in the firm's wage bill, so average cost will fall. And as you know, if you become more productively efficient, like companies like Ryanair, EasyJet, Aldi, what you're able to do then is to use your cost advantage to offer your customers lower prices, and you can make a profit from those lower prices, but your competitors can't because you have lower costs than them. So it's a great way of stealing market share and growing your business at the expense of the competition. We're talking here about becoming more efficient, and we're talking here about how a high division of labour can do exactly that. Number 5, I've basically been fleshing this point out. You could argue lower prices is a benefit of a high division of labour. So Henry Ford was the first industrialist to operate factories using conveyor belts and a high division of labour. Together you'd call that mass production, and Ford did that on an industrial scale. And Ford passed on the benefits of superior efficiency created by a high division of labour to his customers by cutting prices. Lower prices extended the demand for Ford's cars, which enabled him to increase the scale of production, which enabled him to become even more efficient, which enabled him to cut prices, which enabled him to build market share, which encouraged him to expand and achieve even more economies of scale, rinse, lather and repeat. And you know, before Ford knew it, he'd turned cars from being just a plaything for a handful of very rich Americans into a product that was bought by most American households. So in essence, then what you could say is Ford's mass production, which was based in part on a high division of labour, made mass consumption, mass markets possible. Okay, moving on. So if we need to talk about the drawbacks, because in the exam, you know, they might ask you to evaluate the division of labour, and as you know, one way in which you can evaluate is to talk about the drawbacks. So the first drawback of a division of labour is that it creates repetitive jobs. So if you're doing the same thing all day long, over and over again, all week, every single year, obviously you could become demotivated because the jobs are just so repetitive, and that boredom might actually lead to lower effort levels, which could translate themselves into maybe disappointing output per worker, disappointing productivity. You know, if they're really mind-numbingly bored, maybe they just spend loads and loads of time going to the toilet because going to the toilet's more interesting than doing this goddamn awful job that you've created for them under a system of a high division of labour. Second one, again, is a link here, high wage rates. So Ford, he struggled to find workers who were willing to take on the boring jobs that he created with his high division of labour. And to find the labour he needed, Ford was forced into paying his workers really high wages to compensate for the dull jobs created by his high division of labour mass production system. I can definitely see that. You know, if you have crap management that treats their employees really badly or gives them really boring stuff to do, then the only way you're going to keep staff turnover down is by either paying people well or just bonuses of some sort. You know, you just, I don't know, you try and fail with some sort of fringe benefits like free lunches, or you can drink as much tea as you want to at the company's expense, or maybe we'll take you out on golf days. And it's not very efficient. It's more efficient to have people who are motivated because they enjoy the job that you've asked them to do. Okay, number 3, falling product quality. So again, this is a function of repetition, boredom. So workers who are bored, they're less likely to be interested in doing a good job. So what's going to happen then is that bored workers produce shoddily made products that fail in the consumer's hands. Consumers will notice that. They won't like products that are poor quality or not very durable, and they'll stop buying that particular brand and migrate over towards another brand that's better quality. So that's an important aspect too. And then the last one, again, I've been talking about this already, is higher labour turnover. So if you have a high division of labour and it's a boring job, then people will quit. The problem with that is that you're constantly hiring and training new members of staff to replace the ones that are going out of the front door all the time. You know, you can see this in schools. It just causes absolute chaos. No one really knows what each other's doing because no one stays more than 5 minutes. And it costs money to recruit and train people, so it's just a false economy. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about there on the division of labour. The next topic is specialisation. What's the difference between specialisation and the division of labour? Well, simply, specialisation refers to what has been produced. Does an individual firm or country produce one product, or do they produce several products? If they just produce one product, that's called specialisation. If they produce the full range of products that consumers in that part of the world want to consume, you call that self-sufficiency. So the division of labour really isn't concerning what's being produced. The division of labour is really about the method of production. Are employees asked to perform the full range of tasks needed to produce a product, or are they just asked to perform one of the tasks repetitively? And if that's the case, we're operating with a system of high division of labour. Okay, guys, so I hope you found that reasonably informative. Thanks a lot.